Hey everybody, Robert Dunt, arttop10.com. Strolling down here just near Waterloo on the way to the Cello Factory to see an exhibition curated by Simon Streather. I'm looking forward to it. It should be good. Last time I saw Simon, he was actually acting in Waiting for Godot, so a man of many talents. The Cello Factory's cracking little gallery just down here, literally moments from Waterloo, super easy to get to, beautiful light, beautiful space. And this should be quite a fun show to go to. Let's just turn around, we'll head over to it. And here it is, Continuum. That's the show. And that's what we're going to go and have a look at now. Continuum, lovely. Let's head in. Hey everybody, Robert Dunt, arttop10.com. And I'm very pleased to be here today at the Continuum exhibition at the Cello Factory, just near Waterloo in London. And I'm with Simon Streather, the curator of this magnificent show. So Simon, do you want to give us a little bit of a rundown about what this extraordinary thing's all about?
Yeah, well I suppose maybe we could start with the title, Continuum, and an image I chose for that here, which is part of Calum Storrie's work, which is the Tsar bell in Russia, in the Kremlin. And I was thinking about a bell, the way the bell tolls and indicates the times that we live in, and also synthetic is something that is overlaid over natural time and a sense of natural continuum that we might want to inhabit, that we might long for or believe exists, but in fact there are these fractures and disjunctures between the news, between what's happening, and how much this is reflected in these artists' practice or resisted. So the way the continuum of our lives and of cycles interacts and is ruptured by the mass of information that we are swimming in.
Exactly. So the sort of misinformation and information that is poured on us every day, how we respond to it.
Indeed, and also the consumer society, the way that induces and survives by a kind of dissatisfaction, that we have to consume more, faster and better products in order to survive. And artists are people who make things and interpret things. And that seems to me a really important way of surviving and having agency amongst this.
So you almost feel that creativity is a way of surviving in that corporate oppression.
And understanding. Perhaps, interpreting.
Intriguing.
Well, and in terms of interpretation, if we look at some individual works, this work of Calum's, which he describes as a composition, is in fact a score to be interpreted. So he's made this work, made this drawing, made this composition, and then hands it over. It's not dedicated, but it's made for Douglas Benford, the musician who works in an experimental free way to interpret. It shows Calum's interest in archives and in museology, and also I think a wonderful sense of, I heard you chuckling, a wonderful sense of humour and wit as well.
There's good little jokes like the do not bend bit here. And so lead us on to the next artist.
Here we've got collages made by Simon Leigh-Clark, and from a distance and close up they're very different. These are all newspaper cuttings and a series he's made called Blackworks, and from a distance they really feel like paintings. They feel like some kind of gestural, swift painting, but in fact they're incredibly intricate and slowly made and produced, and there's a tension there, an opposition also between what seems to be undefined and beginning to form or disappear or dissipate, and what was probably a very driven, focused message originally. We see from close-up these details of hair and clothes, almost quite fetishistic, which were probably part of a driven narrative, a driven image in a newspaper, and here there's something quite other. He's made out of them something quite different and much more open-ended and improvised.
Yeah. So it's interesting. When I first looked at them, I was talking about them as a painting, and then I did realise eventually they were collaged. And then you can see the textures of clothing in them.
And there's a very beautiful, subtle shift between these different blacks, kind of velvety.
It's actually rather skillful to have found all the correct colours out of the newspaper.
And talking about the slowing down and speeding up, which I think happens in a lot of these works, because you enter Calum's score, slows us down and slows down how we look. These are paintings by Phillipps, and it's entitled Screenshot, because that's where the formation comes. These are like a series of thumbnails that you can very easily swipe and are given to you in computers, but the process here is very slow. There's the creasing and crumpling of a transparency, the washing out of the images, and also the physical application of paint. So there's something which is entropic and process-based, and then there's also something handmade and physically obliterating the faces that at times almost seems like an act of violence.
Yeah.
And we see these images, I think, as a type, you know, a male type, an authoritarian, controlling force.
Are they politicians, or are they?
Well, we don't know.
We don't know. They're
we
just
don't
meant to
know. We're not given that, but we certainly get that impression, don't we?
Yeah.
They're businessmen or politicians.
Yeah.
And for me, it made me think very much of Ozymandias, the poet.
Oh yeah, nice. Go on.
And those last words, you know, the ruins in the desert of the mighty Egyptian emperor, and the words the sculptors inscribed saying, "Look on my works, ye mighty, and tremble."
Yeah, exactly.
And nothing exists but the lone and level sand.
But it's brilliant, isn't it? That's really good, actually. That's a lovely illusion. So are they purely painted, or are they photographic?
Well, no.
Painted?
Initially, they're a print technique coming from these images, from this screenshot, and then they're worked over by hand.
Yeah.
So I think that's very interesting. The space they inhabit between the truly handmade and the mechanistic.
Yeah.
And you know, that's the space of information that we inhabit.
Oh yeah, nice.
Here there's a work, because Phillipps works collaboratively with Peter Kennard under the name kennardphillipps, and this, I think, is an extraordinarily powerful image that I haven't gotten to the bottom of, really, from a Cafe of Equivalence project.
Okay.
And here you've got a page of shares from the well-known pink paper, and in it you have a portrait of this nameless, faceless gleaner from an impoverished country.
Yeah.
Scraping together a meal from the margins after the harvest has been made. And here she is with these columns of figures, a code that is also another kind of portrait for another kind of day's work for another person who can scrutinize this and make their living from this other world. But these aren't two worlds.
That's actually quite emotive.
They've brought them together, and it seems such a simple and direct gesture to bring these two worlds together. I find it...
Some of these, because these things sometimes they can be cliched, but it's not cliched at all, this one. Because although I don't know what it is, I think it's partly that this image is quite difficult to decipher until you get up close to it. And then it's sort of, it's actually rather effective.
Yeah, well, maybe there are three types of work. One has to do some work in looking at interpreting it. And I still am. It still intrigues me.
Yeah. I like the way you describe the market data as code. It's difficult. When you think of it as code, it's a weird thing.
Well, I don't understand it. I can't use it, but I know that there are people who can benefit hugely from it.
Yeah, exactly.
But unfortunately, not that gleam. Yeah. This is the painting that you see as you come in, and it's probably about 20 years old, and it's made by Stephen Carter. The source material for this is a very disposable list in the weekend paper of what, on that particular day, 20 years ago, were the top 10 paperback bestsellers.
Oh, really?
Information about them, titles, authors, prices, numbers of copies sold. And there's an explicit irony that this is a handmade, one-off painting, not very much seen. And then there's this other, if we want to say, cultural product, which were these paperbacks. But perhaps, arguably, even more importantly, there's really a sense of the handmade, the way these letters and figures are separated and put together, a kind of off-register, and the fact that of a shadowy presence that's kind of sinking or fleeting over or into the ground. Nothing's really stable, and the associations between words equally, or the reading of it is destabilized.
Intriguing. Is it stenciled, or is it?
Well, I don't know entirely what the technique is, but you do get this sense of it being very much built by hand.
Yeah.
And somehow fragile. And he talked about the nostalgia now that exists with it, which was not an intent then, but...
yeah, no, it does. And actually, I just hadn't noticed that, but you've just got a little bit of the canvas showing up here at the top, haven't you?
And also at the bottom.
And at the bottom, down in that corner, which is intriguing.
So we have a sense of it maybe being a part of a whole, or again, this problem or difficulty of reading. And he talks about seeing and looking as also as reading. Here we can read in this work by Marq Kearey fragments of text. We remember That's All, Folks, Happiness, The Laughing Cow. And these are images that somehow were coming from an experience he had of an abattoir, and we're so comfortable with anthropomorphizing animals. Now, all these animals are beaming and happy because they're delighted to be consumed by us.
Exactly.
And
exactly.
It's
it's I don't know what it is, but it's quite strange. It's another quite emotive piece, actually. All these little things like I love dairy, hi mama, they're all quite
well, this artist for a long time has been looking at posters and packaging and the information that's out there on the street, and replicates it by hand and then collages the works together. So again, they're records of time passing, which has something to do with Continuum.
Yeah.
And a more immediate time is here in these works by Leigh-Clark. Now, this is just part of what's become an ever-increasing series. And Leigh teaches print. He's a very skilled printmaker, but he's chosen to choose a very, very simple method here, where he uses his own body weight and presses on a sponge, a very cheap sponge that would be used to wash cars. And the thing that cleans, the thing that makes pure, is the thing that sullies here, that dirties and blackens the surface. And I think there are lots of sides to this. Initially playful, and even bawdy, and all sorts of combinations could look like very minimal structures, but seemingly endless combinations. But there's a sense of openness, of coming together, of possibility. And for Leigh, that's very important. I think he's often worked outside of the gallery using billboards to display his work, and is interested in the social aspect of print. And all these works are named, the titles are after anonymous bloggers.
Oh, really?
Yes,
that's
which gives a whole other angle.
Angle
to what's going on here, I think.
Intriguing. So anonymous blogger, what do they blog about, the anonymous bloggers? Or is there a variety of subjects?
Well, I mean, a lot of what he's thinking about is the stain, the taints that go from the not only trolling but blacklisting and cancelling people, and the way people have a freedom to interpret and misinterpret information.
Interesting. I've got to say, what I love about it is it's so simple. Anybody can do it. Theoretically, I mean, you may not be able to create such a beautiful, organised result, but you could go home and make one of these this afternoon with a piece of paper and some ink and a sponge.
You could try.
You could try, but I think that's the point. I don't mean you could make them as beautiful as his, but it's just like, it's so inspirational. If you wanted to make something, you can go home and have a go.
Yes. What do you need to make?
What do you need?
Something.
You're not you're not restricted. You haven't got to go and buy the oil paint and find a canvas and stretch it. It feels incredibly open.
Well, and I think there is a very, even in the way it's presented, he chooses to present them like this pinned to the wall. And there's a kind of openness and a poverty, really, often, of material means in a lot of these works. And that's something that I respond to a lot. So, I mean, for example, here we were looking at this painting, and 20 years separate this and Stephen's most recent paintings, which are up there.
Oh, they're the colourful ones, aren't they?
Yes.
Oh, that's interesting.
And still the stripes and lines relate somehow, perhaps if you know his work, to text, but then how many striped abstract paintings have we seen?
Wow, yeah, exactly.
And yet these somehow feel rather different.
Oh, they do.
Perhaps poor. He's described them as poor, but very direct.
Oh no, I thought they were rather interesting, actually.
And made on fragments or...
Yeah. Did you want to talk about this artist before we...
Well, this is the same artist again, and this is from further back.
I didn't realise that. That's
Yes.
the same artist as the stripes up there and the words over here.
I think there are a few moments like that in this exhibition.
Intriguing.
Where there are connections between not only artists, but their own works, because they're separated by time, which again intrigued me in relation to the title Continuum. So this is a two-part painting, both sourced from the same piece of information, and I thought, okay, this might be 20 or so years old, but how now in our time do we read this toll could reach 100?
Well, exactly.
And he's interested in, in the sensationalist language of the newspaper, but also there's this calm quietude of something which looks like an abstract modernist constructed painting, but it's not. It's sourced and colour-coded in relation to the newspaper. It's not what it seems, it's not what it appears. Much like the sensationalist language of the media.
So I think, like you were saying, the red on here relates to what would be the advertising, and the yellow relates to the
self-advertising and promotion of the paper.
And the white relates to the text.
Correct.
And the blue to the photography.
The image is correct, yeah.
Intriguing. Yeah, really intriguing way of looking at that. Right, should we head upstairs?
Let's head upstairs, yes. After you.
Yeah, nice. Quite intrigued by the continuum of the time between the artists and the work they've made themselves. Right. So I think these ones are by the same artist who did the piece downstairs, aren't they?
Yes, this is Marq Kearey.
I'm going to come this side.
I'm very much taken by the way these are diminutive, like sketches, A4 in size, and the materials he's used are very simple, everyday ballpoint pen, some maps from when he was travelling and walking and thinking about these things, packaging, wrapping, and this, if you like, fool's gold that's
very cool.
over. And these are all photographs of CEOs, major food manufacturing industries. And it seems like there's a lot of information, there's something gone on outside of these works. I don't know if you get that feeling.
Yeah.
The scattering of the drawing, which is almost like doodling.
Yeah, exactly. I think it's same artist as the one we saw downstairs.
This is a Kennard-Phillipps collaboration, and similarly it's on the Financial Times page. And I've put 3 works here by very different artists. And it's interesting in this moment to see a connection through this exhibition. So here we see again a worker from some poor country carrying this increasing burden of bricks on their head. And we have a wall here in this architectural drawing by Calum Storrie for a structure that is potentially realisable. It's called Monument, and it looks almost like a monument to a wall. Once you would have ascended all of this, you come to a wall, and then there's an imaginary or projected perspective wall that could bisect the whole thing and make conference or transfer between the 2 sides impossible.
That's really good, actually.
One can sit and think about this drawing, I think, quite a lot. And then from Stephen Carter, a very recent drawing from a sketchbook page, a drawing of words, and what is repeated in each hand-drawn section is world without borders, walls. Those 4 words. And at first what seems like a utopian statement, we're led to think, well, what does this actually mean? What do any of these words mean? why are they cancelled like that in a way that suggests that they're all we have, but they're also insufficient.
That's strange, actually. Can't I say it's beautifully done, actually, for a sketchbook. It's really tidy. But a strange thing.
Yeah, I think you'd see it as a drawing in its own right.
Yeah.
A drawing that can be read or not.
Yeah. That's strange. I like the date at the top as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I think the times are poignant, aren't they? Part of continuity. And talking about dates and times, when we come along here to other works which are quite different, again, by Simon Leigh-Clark, these are complete newspapers where he's removed all the content, all the text, all the images from one side and then reassembled it. Now this is something he's been doing for, I think, about 15 years. Yeah. And it's sort of programmatic, a job of work, and this eradication of noise and sound produces something new, which is real, which is concrete.
So is it a newspaper from one day that he's spent time cutting up? It is. So it's literally like sort of...
Yeah. And so he describes it as like a found drawing. By going through this process, he discovers something else, some other reality.
They're very strange because they're very pretty. They've got a sort of sense of... they've got a sense of skeletons to them, but also a weird sense of high-rise city blocks and windows.
Indeed.
Got a weird...
And also the colour I find quite interesting, due to the exposure to light or the age of the paper. Gives a sense of...
weird. They will potentially change throughout time.
Yes. Yeah.
Very interesting. They're really...
And again, part of an ongoing series and commitment to reprocessing this information.
Towards there. And then these, so these are the more recent paintings, aren't they, by... Sorry, what was the artist's name?
Stephen Carter's
Carter.
paintings, yes.
Yeah, these are cool, actually. Yeah, when you go up to them, you see more little details, like you can see the different blocks in the colours.
Yeah. And I think in all the time that I've been looking at Stephen's work and considering, I see, I don't know what he would say about this, but I see a motion, a movement to and from silence.
Oh, intriguing.
A kind of thinking about silence.
If you're thinking about, because it's the big word painting down there as well, isn't it? So he's moving towards
and away
silence.
from. There seems to be
intriguing. He's actually got a similar sort of. You've still got these edges, kind of slightly like the big one downstairs. You've still got the canvas on the edge. You've still got these little things that destabilise the
drift. As much as the pieces are these fragments that lack the kind of rhetoric that would tell us something about the importance of the statement.
No, absolutely, I find that quite interesting, actually, those little things.
If we go into this room, we'll see an older...
They're purposefully torn and left ragged at the edges, aren't they?
Yes.
Almost to de-important them. It's very intriguing. Right.
Here we've got an older work of Stephen's, and this room I envisaged as a reading room, because a lot of the artists represented have produced publications, written books, and I thought it'd be nice for people to have a pause, to be able to sit and think and chat with each other.
Oh, that's really nice.
With what they're seeing, because perhaps the works are more discursive than some see. So this is Simon Leigh-Clark again, and these are works that were made through a lot of the lockdown period, very intricately assembled, and he sees them as a kind of score, which in a sense he'd like to see as anonymous.
Oh, I can see, I hadn't realised, but yes, you've got these are amazingly crafted, because you can't really tell how it's been produced, but it is actually collaged, isn't it?
And even the edges, it's difficult to tell whether the edge is coming from one side or the other.
Oh, that is actually kind of neat, isn't it? Yeah, because the edges are one side or the other, aren't they, the whole time? That's actually it's absolutely impossible to tell how it's done. It's done so craftily. Nice. Shall we just have a quick stroll into the installation section?
Shall we have a look at this first?
Oh, sorry, Simon. Sorry, we didn't do that one properly, did we? Let's get back here.
Please.
Oh, yeah, of course.
We have some visitors here, and they might have something to
add anything in if you want to add any tidbits.
So There's another work of Stephen Carter's, an older work, and we're told it's called Intimate Portrait. They're just the two first words on the page, and we don't know where these words come from, how they're chosen, but they seem to have a gloss and hype and a kind of power that's at odds with this literally gritty surface.
Yeah. Oh yeah, it is actually gritty, isn't it?
Where the glamour seems to have been somewhat sapped, but they seem so potent that when I look at it, I keep finding other connections and a different story each time I look at it. What do you think, Paul?
Sit near to Paul, then we'll pick him up on the microphone.
Hello again.
Well, to me, it looks like a piece of ancient propaganda that you've dug out of, a nuclear waste heap. Which is not to say I don't like it, but I also think it's sort of strangely attractive, even though it's gritty. I'm tempted to say it'd make a good poster of that. Perhaps I shouldn't say that, but I like the fact I haven't studied the words yet, but it's the visual impact is perfect. It's just it's something. The haphazardness of it is extremely well crafted, if you like. So it's got an immediate balance and it's aesthetically pleasing.
Yeah, there are tensions between that, aren't there? Like you said, you haven't read it. This thing is very interesting between reading and seeing and looking and appreciating in different ways. Yeah.
And it makes you think of Scrabble, isn't it?
Scrabble.
Scrabble. And all those things people say that, which is the first word that you see. It says a lot about your state.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I saw killer first. So I don't know what that says.
Yeah. Star power.
It's more or less everything seems to be there, doesn't it? When you look at it, I think they're not the most universal words, but they seem to cover a lot of ground. Birth, heat, undressed.
Yeah.
It's a bit like. Can we make connections with Beckett?
I think we could. Jenny Holzer. But there's a kind of austerity, isn't there? Yeah. An austerity and a kind of reduction.
Yeah, I'm thinking of Tracy Emin and Jenny Holzer when I see this.
What does it date? What does it date from? Is it current, recent?
No, I think this is maybe round about 20 years old. But and the coloured paintings there are the most recent of his.
No, it's definitely worthy of. Actually, nice that the sofas are here because it is quite a good one to contemplate.
Yeah.
Intriguing. A lot of the stuff you got on the show, although it's got sort of messages to it, it's also very visually pleasing.
What's your theme, Simon? Are we
Continuum.
Okay, yes.
How things continue. And I mean, this painting, 20 years old, here we sit, we discuss it. It has a different resonance and reverberance now to when it was made.
I think it's my favourite piece, actually.
Is it because you've spent the most time on it?
Could be.
Yeah, it's got a good spot on here, hasn't it? To sort of
it's got its own little space, hasn't it?
Yeah.
But I suppose there are reasons why one wants to spend time with things. I mean, I often find out that something will strike me, captivate me, before I know why or what. Or and some things I still am unravelling.
We were just having a conversation about that, about some art just affects you mysteriously, not intellectually or even aesthetically.
And I think that installation in there is something that has a sort of almost a gut effect, doesn't it? I think they manage with their work to touch nerves that you hope people have still got, especially in this very rough time.
Absolutely.
I know people have come down with not much to say.
Yeah, it has that effect.
So I've just finished going around the installation upstairs, which is, the more I looked at it, the more I suddenly saw the money, I saw the newspapers, I saw the flag initially, but then suddenly all these other little things revealed themselves to me about it.
Yeah, I know a number of people said that they felt that they were intruding on a space, which was a curious, but it's sort of, well, it's a very sobering end to the exhibition, isn't it? And I think in their works, Kennard-Phillipps' works are very direct, and they talk in a way that's initially uncomplicated about human dignity, and hopefully touch a nerve that we haven't lost.
Yeah, certainly.
Because images of depravity, poverty and violence are all too common in this world, but still they seem to have, for decades, produced images that are part of recycled back into communal language and make us think. And I think also do it in an unusual way for English society, in that there isn't humour there. It's looking very, there's a big tradition, isn't there, of satirical opposition, which kind of deflects things into a humorous position where we feel there is opposition, all is good with the world. And I think there's a very hard critical stare.
I think it's really interesting, I should say, that the English thing is always undercutting stuff with humour. Maybe not always in a beneficial fashion. So is there anything do you want to sum up the whole show in some way?
No. I think we should just continue. And thank you very much, Rob, for taking the time to look. And
Simon, absolutely brilliant. Loved it. Thanks so much for coming to see the show. Absolutely brilliant. As ever, everybody, like, subscribe, and also like my other channel and subscribe to that Travel Dog. Fantastic. Thanks so much, Simon. And
thank you, Rob.
Au revoir, everybody. Ciao, Hadar Hafiz, Auf Wiedersehen. See you soon. Bye. Bye.
Bomba clock.